Hello, fellow fleet and mobility players. Mismanagement is one of the most common reasons of business failure, or at least not reaching its targets. This certainly includes those within the fleet and mobility industry, of course. And today we will be hearing from a company which has been selected as the best managed company in the United States in 2022, and it was selected by international management consultancy firm Deloitte. So what is the name of the company? It's Merchants Fleet, a growing fleet management company out of New Hampshire, and they're offering comprehensive and customizable fleet solutions. And speaking with me today is CEO Brendan Keegan.
Great. Hey, thanks for having me on today. And winning this award from Deloitte is quite an honor for our employees, for our clients, for our ownership group, and we're really excited that we were able to win this year.
Yeah, so that was just my first question, Brendan, is first of all, congratulations on being recognized as the best managed company. And what do you think contributed to the most to Merchants Fleet's winning this award?
So I know that when we went through the process, and it was really rigorous, in fact, Deloitte puts you through like a full day interview that they go through your different teams, and then they send it out to a third party to assess. And they really look at four key areas. The first area is around your strategy. Second area is around your execution, your performance. The third area is around your culture. And then the last is really governance and financials. And in the area of strategy, I think where we made a really strong impression is, we have a very simple, very clear, very solid vision, enable the movement of people, goods, and services freely. So the fact that when they talked to many different employees, that the employees knew what the vision was and could tie it back to our strategy was really powerful. Also, when we went through our strategic direction, one of the things they look for is, they talked to me about it, but then they talked to all different parts of the company. And you don't necessarily know who they're going to talk to. And they really try to find out how embedded is your strategy across the company. And the feedback that we got was that it really was embedded. And that goes to some of the storytelling that we provide. Now, in the area of strategy execution, they then look and say, okay, if you said you're going to do X, how are you doing against that? And we talk about our strategy having 12 economic engines. We talk about an F1 car having a 12-valve engine. And so we tell that story. And then when they really went through and they heard from our teams were talking to them about our new businesses, such as commercial sales and truck rental and last mile. And they really heard about the economic engines. And then the third area around culture. We're very big on culture. The four things I focus on as CEO are vision, values, people, and culture. If I can assure all of those are aligned, the strategy and our execution fall in line. But around the area of culture, they heard about our virtual hangouts, our back to school programs, our wellness programs, our Learn IQ programs. And they really, I believe, got a feeling for the passion that our employees have. And then lastly, on the financials and governance, we have been growing 35 to 40% a year for the last 4 years. And we've exceeded the $2 billion mark and have moved from 8th to 5th in our industry. And kind of when they went through and saw that we had a repeatable model that we've been doing it year in, year out, meaning even during COVID, we grew by that. While supply chain's been going on and some companies have been struggling, we've been able to muscle through that.
So you talked a little bit about money and also fleet size. Could you just give me a little bit idea of how much the company grew last year and what are you expecting this year and maybe next?
Sure. So, it's interesting. So, my history with the company really goes back to 2009 when I was the company's largest client. So I've known the company for going on almost 13 years. And then I jumped into a board advisory role. But when I got here about 4.5, 5 years ago, the company had just passed the 500 million mark in terms of leased assets. In this past November, December, we passed 2 billion. And right now we're on our path to 2.5 billion. So we've been growing that top line about 35 to 40% a year. This year we'll grow 600 million in assets, which is bigger than the company was just 4 years ago. So pretty exciting. With vehicles on the road, we're approaching 75,000. We have 170,000 that we manage. And what's great about that is we have locked in for the next couple of years, tremendous growth in front of us based on a term we use in the company, embedded growth, deals we've already won. So the company's kind of on a momentum, sort of like, not to use a sports analogy, but the Patriots over the last 20 years, where we're kind of doing a good job of winning season in and season out.
I hope you're not thinking about retiring like Tom Brady, though, but just kidding.
Hey, I'm definitely not going to switch teams like Tom.
Okay, yeah. During the COVID-19, so we had a lot of changes and took place, as all of us know. And could you tell me a little bit about what type of leasing or maybe financial solutions that the company had provided during the pandemic, and in order to keep businesses mobile? And do you think that these solutions, could they be applied in the post-COVID-19 era?
Yeah, so it was real interesting. So we had our standard offerings of long-term leasing solutions, short-term leasing solutions, and rental solutions. So we had all three of those. But what we saw during COVID is these three needed to work together better than they ever had. We had some of our long-term clients that were impacted by COVID, that they weren't sure if they were going to need these long-term vehicles based on how disrupted were they going to be by COVID. So we flipped a number of those into short-term leases or even rentals. And then as they got through COVID, we flipped the rentals into long-term leasing. So we were able to kind of take our different businesses and really meld them together for our over 3,000 clients. And really were able to provide incredibly flexible and innovative solutions. There were things like own to lease, rent to lease, just rentals. There were other when with the supply chain, as we came out of COVID, during COVID, we started talking about microchips, and now it's blown up to complete supply chain, where we said, hey, if there's something not there long-term, let us get a rental in short-term. Now, here's what's interesting. Many of those solutions that came out of necessity during COVID are now standard offerings that we're offering across our base. And we saw in total, we brought 8 new funding, leasing, service strategies to the market. Of those 8, 7 are continuing to go on post-COVID. And I know we're maybe not post-COVID, but it certainly feels like it lately. And it's really made us a more client-centric company. And it's really accentuated one of our 5 values that we call flexibility. So really excited that, in our opinion, COVID made us a better company.
Yeah, sustainability is another thing that's people are talking about more and more, it seems like, since in the past few years. But sometimes it costs more. I mean, how can fleets balance the environmental and sustainability issues with cost savings? And do you think that they complement each other, or maybe they contradict each other?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Earlier, I talked about our vision, enable the movement of people, goods, and services freely. Well, 2 years ago, we added the words "and responsibly" on, as we pushed into being more of an ESG company, environmental, social, and governance-oriented company. And when we talk about the environment and you talk about commercial fleets, there's another E that comes into play, and that's electrification. So what we're looking at is, even over the last 3 years, when we saw electric vehicles being a 20-30% premium to an ICE vehicle, that's come down. We're seeing 10 to 15%. They used to be 36 to 48 month total cost of ownership paybacks. We're seeing that tighten into the 24 to 30 month range. And by the way, that will tighten more and more as we continue to build out more of the EVs and the prices come closer. Now, you can't debate that the vehicle costs $5,000, $6,000, $10,000, $12,000 more at purchase price, but you equally can't debate that the fuel costs less, equally the maintenance. So as we see this, it's going to be more upfront costs, but longer term savings. So what we talk about is, it's not only doing good for your P&L, your profit and loss, but it's doing good for the environment. Now we're seeing socially conscious companies that are ESG focused. We're also looking at some of the major companies, the Green 500, the Fortune 500, where they're saying, hey, we've got to make an impact on this. A lot of the last mile companies, we've heard Walmart and FedEx and UPS and Amazon. We've heard of consumer brands like Patagonia, and I could go on and name many others that are very ESG focused, that are very focused on doing right for their environment, but they also want to do right for their shareholders. And that's where that total cost of ownership. Again, when I started at this company a few years back, if we were looking at 48-month total cost of ownership life cycles, that's getting reduced to 24, 30. And I think if we were doing this call maybe a year from now, that's probably going to be looking at 18 to 24 months before we cross over on the break-even analysis.